Well, hey there, oldies. Welcome to That Old Soul Show, or as I like to call it, TOSS for short. I'm your host, Sarah McVicker, here to take you on a nostalgic joyride where timeless tunes meet visionary views. Each week, we're diving deep into the sounds that move us, the movies that lit up our screens, and the artful films that made us feel something. This is the show for the old souls with fresh takes, celebrating everything from timeless classics to groundbreaking visuals and cinematic masterpieces that push boundaries. So, grab your headphones, turn up the volume, and let's vibe through the rhythms, reels, and stories that make life unforgettable. Welcome to That Old Soul Show. We are back with episode 5 and we're live and in color. I say that because we now have a video element. And so, hi, I'm really excited. Today we're talking about biopics and musical biopics. And I'm ready to dive in. So before we begin, let's get into a little trivia, shall we? And since we're on the topic of biopics, I have none other than a country biopic for the ones who love that. So the question is, Coal Miner's Daughter is a biopic about a female country western singer. Who is it exactly? Is it Patsy Cline, Loretta Lynn, Reba McEntire, or Dolly Parton? Stick around because the answer will be revealed at the end. Now we're going to move forward to what I've been tuning into, watching, listening to lately, and some of my recommendations. So over the holidays, I watched Carry On. Oh my goodness. I don't know how I made it through that film. It was intense, to say the least. Taron Egerton and Jason Bateman did a phenomenal job. And like I said, the movie was on intense with capital intense. Like, it kept me on my toes the entire time. And I'm not normally one to scream at a television set because I know it's a movie and I know they can't hear me. However, I was screaming at the television. I don't know. I was talking to Taryn like I was his best friend, like, don't do that or do that, you know? Needless to say, I haven't seen a good action film in a really long time. And when I say intense, like, the action was jam-packed. They never took their foot off the gas. And the fight scene in the car, whew, that made my stomach turn. I also want to know behind the scenes, like, producer brain, how did y'all film that? Because damn. That's all I can say. Basically, what I'm trying to say is I recommend it if you haven't seen it. It's the debate of, is it a Christmas film? Yes, it is a Christmas film because they talked about Christmas a lot, unlike some other films that I would argue are not a Christmas film, but we won't get into that. The other thing I watched was Tulsa King. Now, I love me some Sylvester Stallone. Grew up on him. Will always love him. And this was so fun to watch. Me and my mama watched it, and it was just a blast. And I really enjoyed, like, the family camaraderie that Stallone created. And I have, like, these air quotes, misfits is what I'll call them. And he pretty much turned them into this mob family. And you watch it and you're just like, you're rooting for them. You're really, really rooting for them. The writing is also really good. Like, the comedy is understated, but I found myself laughing at the most random one-liners. Next, moving into what I've been listening to, Lana. Yes, ma'am, Lana. SOS Deluxe by SZA has been on repeat. On repeat. Now, I'll admit, it had to grow on me, but I think that's because I was expecting more of that SOS punk rock R&B, alternative R&B feel, angsty feel that we got from SOS. But this was like a B-side, if you will. Lana was a lot more sad feels, more R&B, and I love it. I love it. All right. Some of my favorite songs are obviously Drive because that music video is amazing and we can talk about it later or we can talk about it in the comments. Give me your thoughts. Ben Stiller is amazing. Mama manifested that. Okay. She put it on Twitter and she manifested it. All right. Another one I really like is Kitchen. That's just a fun song. Understated, but fun. Get Behind Me. Although it is an interlude, Not Today, Satan is an everyday, almost everyday reoccurrence that comes out of my mouth. Like, just no, get thee behind me, Satan. We're not doing this. Okay, we're not doing this. And then last, 30 for 30. That is just a vibe. And I almost feel as if it's a response to Luther, the song that Kendrick and her did together on his album, GNX. It feels like they could go hand in hand a little bit, you know? So that's what I've been tuning into. Now let's move into the old soul portion and find out the top 5 biopics that influenced my musical taste. Now, of course, y'all know I had a long list, about 10 to 15, but I narrowed it down based on repetition of how many times I watched it as a kid, or just the connection I had with the artist, or even just the musical artist that really impacted me. So starting off with these, I'll go in order of like least to greatest. And that's not to be rude or anything. It's just how they impacted me. Like, did I watch it a lot? Did I watch it a little bit? So we're going to start with the Buddy Holly story. This came out in 1978 and starred Gary Busey. Now, of course, I probably didn't watch this till like the 2000s, so late to the game, right? But I remember this movie so vividly, even though I've only seen it once, other than rewatching it for this here podcast we're on today. But I remember it vividly. I was hanging out in my room, kid, just watching on. Now, some of y'all know this and some of y'all don't. We used to have TVs that were big. They weren't flat. And we had VHS tapes. So it was a big TV. And I just remember sitting in front of it, probably sitting a little too close to the TV when I was young. But I was watching it while my dad was cooking corned beef. Now, why does that matter? Why is that a thing? It's really not. It's a memory that I'm sharing with you guys. It was the only time he ever made corned beef, but it was good nonetheless. Anyway, I'm rewatching it, and the opening scene when they're at the roller rink, like, there's a sign for corned beef in the background, and I was just like, that's kismet. It's just random, but wow, interesting. Did not catch that. This was definitely one of those films that was on cable, and so I kind of just caught it. I don't know if I caught it in the very beginning or what, but like I mentioned, only watched this once, and I only needed to watch it once, I think. Also, it was really a sad ending, of course, and so I didn't want to see it again. But I was so enamored by the music and his style that, of course, I continued listening while I was growing up. And watching it back, it amazes me how everyone judged them based on their sound and their tone and everything like that. And of course, as a child, I know that didn't click for me like it did a few days ago, but it was just very interesting. Very, very interesting. I liked how the movie started with a musical performance that was on a smaller scale, smaller stage, and then we end with a music performance on a big stage. So you really get to see this feather to feather moment and like the longevity and the projections, if you will, of just how he grew. And I, that was amazing to me. Short and sweet. It was amazing. And it was sad how the movie just ended so abruptly, but I think that's only because his story ended so abruptly since, he tragically died in a plane crash. But I was inspired by Buddy Holly for his tenacity with music, like his love for music and performing and just producing music in general. He had a clear sound, and that was to be respected. And it took people a minute, but they finally got it. And so some of my favorite Buddy Holly songs are That'll Be the Day, Maybe Baby, and Peggy Sue Got Married. Now, there is a Peggy Sue, and that is a good song. But Peggy Sue Got Married, I don't know, it hits different for me. And so that's why it's on the list. Moving to number 2, we have The Runaways. This was 2010, starring Dakota Fanning and Kristen Stewart. This movie came out a little bit later, and I already knew of The Runaways, mainly because my dad played their music in the truck, and another oldie thing we're about to introduce y'all to, we used to have to burn CDs with music that we wanted. It was like BearShare, LimeWire, Napster, wherever you were getting your music from, you burned it to a CD. And my dad made a CD of hardcore rock and roll that he liked to play when he went to the gym or before he went to the gym. And back in the day, the gym used to have a daycare. So he listened to it on the way to the gym. This band was on the CD. So I got a little history lesson on rock and roll from him, especially female rock and roll. And he told me that Joan Jett came from this band. And I already knew Joan Jett and I already loved her music. So it was nice. And I was always fascinated, and still to this day, am fascinated with female drummers because that was the one musical instrument that my mother vetoed right out of the gate. She didn't want to hear it. I don't blame her, but she just was like, no, we're not doing that. So I live vicariously through drummers, especially female drummers. And so when I was watching the film, I wasn't aware of their story. And of course, by the time this movie came out, I was a bit older and a lot more knowledgeable of certain themes. And, I don't have much to say on the movie other than it's raunchy, it's risky, it's out there, it's rock and roll, and watching the film after having listened to their music for so many years, it made more sense. It clicked, but it was also a little sad to me. Yeah, just a little. But again, the music lives on. And of course, some of my favorite songs are Cherry Bomb. It's just an anthem, right? It's just, I don't know any other way to put it. It's when you want to like stick it to the man, quote unquote, air quotes, all that, you put on Cherry Bomb. Another one that I like is You Drive Me Wild. And so if you haven't checked out The Runaways, feel free to check them out. Moving on to our third film. Now, and I know I say now a lot, and it's something I do when I'm really deep in thought. This movie played on cable on repeat, and my mama seemed to always have it on, just playing in the background, because that's what we do. And so it took me a long time to watch this movie all the way through. And that movie is Ray, starring Jamie Foxx, Kerry Washington, and the amazing, incomparable Regina King. This came out in 2004. I do remember it vividly. It won a lot of awards, was nominated for a lot of awards. Ray Charles is top tier on my list of musical influences for me. The piano is just a vibe. It's groovy. It makes you move, you know? And of course, when you watch it, you're rooting for the underdog. And when I was rewatching it, I was falling in love with it over again because, you know, I'm watching it with a different lens these days. I constantly have my filmmaker hat on. It's hard for me to take it off. And I know that it's something that I try my best not to bring it up too often because I know it can be a touch annoying to watch films with a filmmaker. But I really loved like the old rustic cinematography and the stock photos and stock footage rather. And, you know, we're starting in the 40s and anything that's like 20s through like the 60s. I love the cars. I love the fonts of the establishments. Like, I just love that time period, at least the way it looked. Okay, we won't get into the history of those time periods, but like the color, the vibrancy, the way people dressed, all of that, the cars, like all of the things I live for. Okay, I love me a little vintage vibe. Okay, so getting back to Ray Charles though, Jamie Foxx did an amazing job. Obviously, I believe he won an Oscar for his performance. Well deserved. And I love the cadence of Ray Charles' speech and just how he talked. And also the way they introduced flashbacks was really shocking and really, really raw. Like, you know, the suitcase filled with water and then the arm. And then we later figure out what that symbolizes. And then, you know, the bathroom scene, he's trying to use the restroom and he's feeling like he's stepping in water. Like, the symbolism, just beautifully done. Okay. Now back to the music though. I mean, it was just the jazz. I love the jazz. Okay. The saxophones, the piano, obviously, just everything about it. And I think I was enamored by the reach that he had. And I don't know. I think when I was a kid and I finally discovered who Ray Charles was, I felt like I was late to the party, you know, in a innocent child way. Like, obviously I was by age and stuff and years, but I wanted to know more of his music, you know, and I enjoyed watching as he traveled the world and shared his sound, and just, it was emotional rewatching it, right? Because I've just invested in the storyline. And I have a laundry list of songs that I love from Ray Charles, but I'll just give you a few. I really love I Believe to My Soul, What I'd Say, Part 1 and 2, 7 Spanish Angels that he did with Willie Nelson, and one of my absolute favorite songs of all time. Like, if this was on karaoke, I love to sing this song, okay? I adore this song, and that's I've Got a Woman. I love Ray Charles, and that is why his biopic made it on my list. Now, one of these days, I will get through an episode without talking about where I come from, who I am, the state that raised me. But I would be remiss if I did not put Selena on this list of biopics. I watched this movie over and over and over again, and still to this day, I rewatch it over and over and over again. And I have no shame about it. None. It came out in 1997 and stars Jennifer Lopez. Now, Selena is, man, she's an electrifying performer. And growing up, I was fascinated by the glitz and the glamour of her outfits and her love story. And listen, we love the bustiers or busticacas, whatever you call them. We love them. They were bedazzled and just gorgeous. One of these days, I want to go to her museum where you can see all of her clothes. One of these days I'll go. One of these days. Now, as far as the biopic, one of my favorite scenes was, of course, the washing machine scene when her mother, played by Constance Marie, who we all know and love from the George Lopez show, taught her this dance. And I love this scene because it really shows you like how her mom finally, maybe not finally, but it feels like she finally accepted, all right, this is what my child wants to do. How can I help out and be a part of her story? And so teaching her how to dance, I think, was her way of connecting with her in that sense. And so it's just a fun scene. It's just, and I think after that, that's when the movie really takes off. But Selena is just such a huge deal in Texas and Tejano music, which I didn't know for the longest time. Maybe about 3 years ago, I figured this out. Not everybody knows who Selena is. Or Tejano music. But I guess that makes sense in a way because it's Tejano music with Texas. Like, how many times? Take a shot every time I say Texas. Or a sip of water if you're in dry January like me. And Selena, right? Selena, the movie, the biopic, everything about it. It's fun. The performances are fun. The family is fun. And I always cry or tear up towards the end of the film, rightfully so. They've got Dreaming of You playing, and it's like, why? Like, why? Still to this day, you ask why. And we won't get into it, but this is an interesting year. And in a few months, we will see how things play out. And so we're all crossing our fingers and toes that certain things go the right way. But I don't know. Selena, of course, is a huge deal in Texas, right? And so as a child, I did not have as much Texas pride as I do now. But, it's something you grow into. And you can't go wrong being proud of being from Texas. You just can't. You just can't. If you get that reference, I love you. If not, it's totally fine. It's from a musical. But anyway, I think what keeps me coming back to this movie, not only the music, but just her heart and her fun and beautiful personality. And so Selena will always live on, and her family does an amazing job of keeping her legacy alive. And I think it's just beautiful. So my favorite songs, of course, again, I have another laundry list, but I'll just give you 3. Baila esta cumbia. Now, love singing that. That's just fun to dance to. Como la flor and Dreaming of You. Those 3 songs are my top 3. And I could name others, but I'll just, again, like I said, I'll stick to those. But if you haven't checked out Selena, please jump on the bandwagon. And those of you who do love Selena, anything for Salinas, okay? Anything. I think Texas Humor even has a shirt that says that on it. Oh, man. shameless plug, not not endorsed to say that. I just remember a few years back they had a shirt that had that on there, and I wish I bought one. I really wish I bought one. But anyway, moving forward to our fifth and final film. Now, this, of course, is another one that I watched a lot as a kid. And I'm just going to say a few words, and it should tell you what the film is. Hello, I'm Johnny Cash. Like, oh, that right there hooked me in. And if you're unfamiliar, the film I'm talking about, the biopic I am speaking of, is Walk the Line. Now, this came out in 2005, starring Joaquin Phoenix and Reese Witherspoon. Johnny Cash was just a rebel, and he was smooth with it. Like, he wasn't flaunting it in your face. And I didn't realize how much I watched this movie as a child until I watched it a few days ago, because I was surprised with myself at how many lines I still remembered. Like, you have to watch the movie a lot to know some of the lines, right? Right. So, needless to say, I felt like a child again when I was watching this film. And I think I rewatched it so much as a child, first and foremost, of course, because of the music, but the drama, like the love story. And although you watch it these days and you're like, I feel like they kind of glorified, some not so nice stuff. But regardless, a love story is a love story. And I think they told it beautifully. I think his connection with June it felt so pure, like a simple friendship level. And Reese Witherspoon was a solid choice. Solid choice. I love her so much. Now, moving into the film itself, some of my favorite scenes are the scene when they're drinking and having a good time. And I don't think they're trying to blow up the tree. I think they're trying to just shoot fireworks off of it, but they end up blowing it up and breaking off a tree limb. And it was a big hunker of a tree limb. My other favorite scene is the prison scene when he is singing and they're having so much fun, because what else do you do when you're listening to Johnny Cash? Absolutely nothing. You just have so much fun. The final scene that really got me, and it felt like such a wise tale, when he's auditioning for the record label, and the guy doesn't really love that he's singing gospel music, and he's like, I don't believe you. And he had something else prepared. Now, I can only speak to entertainment people, although I imagine this could work for anybody's field, but especially for writers and singers, like, always have something else prepared, always have something else in your arsenal ready to go. Like, stay ready so you don't have to get ready. And I was just amazed. Like, I thought that was such an interesting touch to the film. Understated, but needed. And so I just enjoyed Johnny Cash. And still to this day, of course, I listen to his music, and especially when I just want to feel like a rebel. So again, I have a laundry list, but I'll just give you a few. Some of my favorite songs are Get Rhythm, One Piece at a Time, and It Didn't Cost Me a Dime. Okay? That song is phenomenal. And A Boy Named Sue. I play that song a lot. I play that song a lot. It's just his storytelling ability that I really admire. And he's just, again, he's not trying too hard. And so that's why he's really on the top. And one day I'd love to go out and make it to Nashville and go to his museum and just maybe spend all day there reading every little plaque, just absorbing all the information. I do have a few honorable mentions, and this is mainly because it was hard to narrow down 10 to 15 biopics. Like The Five Heartbeats, such a fun one. And then there's some others that made it on the honorable mention list, mainly because they recently came out within like the past few years, or so they didn't technically raise me, but their music did influence me. And that is Bohemian Rhapsody, the biopic about Queen. If Bohemian Rhapsody is not one of your speed songs, Leadfoot songs, I don't know what is. It's just a fun song to drive to. Another biopic is Rocket Man, about Elton John. I've had the pleasure of seeing Elton John perform, and he was phenomenal. It was just him and the piano, and he just sat there and played and sang, and it was so much fun. Now, I have to say this because I know a certain someone will be listening to this. I love you very much. But one of my best friends, he dressed up as Elton John in I believe it's like the LA Dodgers sparkly one piece. And he kind of resembles Sir Elton John in the face a little bit. So it was like every 15 seconds, me and my other friend who was with him, we were getting stopped so they could take pictures with him. And boy, oh boy, after about the second or third time, I was like, okay, let's get to our seat. Just stop. But it was a fun night, and my best friend had so much fun because he loves Sir Elton John. And the last honorable mention is I Want to Dance with Somebody, the biopic about Whitney Houston. I don't need to go into detail. Whitney Houston is queen. Okay, we love and respect her over here. But again, that film, I think, came out 1 or 2 years ago. So it wasn't a biopic that, quote unquote, raised me. But the music definitely did. And so it's interesting to see this list that I have for you guys, because some of these musicians I found on my own, and I found them through the biopic, and that's always been fascinating to me when I say music that raised me, because I kind of just had to seek it out for myself. I mean, every now and then my dad would play me some music. My mom, not so much, but that's why I don't take these biopics for granted. I really enjoy them. And even to this day, rewatching them hit a special place in my heart. Overall, I think the through line, if you will, as to why these biopics raised me is because they were all great performers that gave the crowd what they wanted. And when I was younger, the ability and the confidence to command a crowd and entertain was super appealing to me. So, I definitely was the kid in the mirror practicing with a pencil or a broomstick, whatever I could find. I didn't really use a hairbrush. I don't know why. Maybe it didn't make sense in my head. Like, how do you use a hairbrush as a microphone? I don't know. That's interesting. I should unpack that one day. But nonetheless, we're here now. And I'm grateful for this music. As you can see, I'm really inspired by it. And yeah, now that's that. We will go over back to our trivia question for today. Again, the question is, Coal Miner's Daughter is a biopic about a female country western singer. Who? Was it Patsy Cline? Forgive me, Lord, and forgive me, Patsy. Was it Loretta Lynn, Reba McEntire or Dolly Parton? Drum roll. If you picked Loretta Lynn, you would be correct. Now, this is another biopic that definitely raised me, but I gave y'all Walk the Line as my country. So I think for some of y'all, that's probably more than enough country. And that's a wrap, oldies. Thank you so much for tuning in to That Old Soul Show for the old souls with fresh takes. If you loved today's episode, be sure to subscribe and share it with your fellow old souls. And tune in next week when we're going to talk about some surrealist films and music videos. All right, until next time, bye for now.